Several of you have been so kind in asking after my dear cousin Norman Walker, who is dealing with fourth stage of lung cancer in a clinic in Switzerland where he now lives. And so I'd like to dedicate this broadcast to Norman, as indeed to you all out there on the front line. We've now had 65 Zoom calls with all the cohorts, and we're hearing from hundreds of you out there just how well you're doing and how strong you are in these difficult times. And that is exactly what Norman is being, always has been. You see, Norman and I are cousins. He's 20 days younger than me. We probably shared a pram together, and we've done a lot of things in our lives together, not least being at school together. And he's, I know, is one of the bravest and kindest and most thoughtful, a real trusted other of men, and a person to whom I can go at any time and never feel a nuisance, knowing that he will neither laugh at my dreams or mock at my failures. And so in dedicating this broadcast to Norman, I want to take us back to our school days, when we've often reflected all these years on that we learnt far more out of the classroom than in the classroom. There were some key characters who got alongside us, who were interested in us not just as an exam statistic or how we were doing in a particular area, but also as an all-round individual. What contributions could we yet make in our lives ahead? They were those sorts of people who we didn't remember much of what they taught us, but we certainly remembered how they made us feel. And one of those was Maury, not Maury Schwartz of Mitch Albom fame, but Maury, who touched my life and touched Norman's as well. I remember after class one day, Maury kept me back and he said, Drummond, in those days surnames were the norm, Drummond, if we work, we could go to Cambridge. And we did work together. He taught me about all sorts of things well outside the classroom, including opera and public speaking and other matters of music and the arts. And I did get to Cambridge, and I found myself as a young 18-year-old playing in a Fitzwilliam College 15, which contained two English internationals, rugby internationals. One of them, Roger Shackleton, a brave and bold and straightforward Yorkshireman, was a wonderful skipper, a captain. Before we went out to play each time, he'd say, "Now lads, just go out and enjoy it. Just go out and enjoy it." What a great mantra for life and for attention. Just go out and enjoy it. Sometimes that's hard to do, isn't it? But Roger went down, he left Cambridge, and I found myself the next year taking his place in the Blues side, the first 15 of Cambridge, the team that was due to play against Oxford. And we were that year privileged to play against the New Zealand All Blacks. New Zealand All Blacks were coming for revenge. They'd been beaten 2-1 by John Dawes, the captain, his Lions side, the all-conquering Lions side that year, the only time that we've ever won a series, the Lions against the All Blacks. John Dawes became the Cambridge coach. The manager of the victorious Lions was Carwyn James, another Welshman, and Carwyn James coached the Oxford side, so there was a lot to play for. But we were playing against the All Blacks, and 2 days before the match, John Dawes came up from London Welsh to coach us. And when we'd finished the final training session, he took us into the Cambridge dressing room, and there we were seated alongside our numbers, jerseys, ready for the Wednesday kickoff against New Zealand. And John Dawes gave us a spectacularly quiet, gentle, strong team talk, at the end of which he walked across the dressing room, and I'll never forget it because it was a wooden dressing room in those days, and he had studs on, and his studs made a particular noise as he moved gently and quietly across to the dressing room door and left the door open, and then he said, "There's the door. There's the door. If you're not up for it, go now. There's the door. If you're not up for it, go now." And the next day we certainly were up for it. When we played against New Zealand, I remember the team talk before we went out, the Cambridge skipper of the day, also an England international, he said, "Give it the extra, lads. Give it the extra, lads." And we went out onto the field of play, remembering John Dawes' remarks, and give it the extra. And we didn't let Cambridge down, because that same All Blacks team was the team that they selected by and large to play against Wales at Cardiff Arms Park the following Saturday. So what did we learn from that? We learned that sometimes in life there are things that we feel are beyond us. John Dawes was first to say that this might be the biggest game you've played yet in your lives, or maybe in your entire lives. But somehow we stood up to it, and somehow we managed to come through. I sometimes think that it's the early influences on our lives that enable us to carry on when we feel like giving up. And no one more so perhaps than the newly president-elect, all being well, Joe Biden of America. If you think of the things that Joe Biden has gone through in his life, the loss of his first wife and daughter, and then the loss of his son, and yet he somehow kept going. Was it not Frère Roger of Taizé who said, "You never can tell how the little that you communicate, quite simply to another person, may find a resonance in their soul, which may last their whole life long." Joe Biden has kept getting out of the dressing rooms of his life and getting onto the field of play. And so I want to pay tribute to you all today for the way in which you, as heads and deputies and senior people in the school staff across Scotland and far beyond, are getting out of the dressing rooms and getting onto the field of play so that you can be that person, because we never can tell how that person like Maury can make such a difference to a young person's life and their sense of opportunity and potential. Is there a more important profession in the world than ours? Looking after other people's children, being responsible for them, being doubly responsible for them, to influence and challenge and inspire them towards the next generation, to a better, fairer, more just, more thoughtful, kinder society. That was what Joe Biden set out to do, and all being well, he will continue to do that from the White House. But he, in a kind of reverse way, has paid particular gratitude and attention to his son Beau, whom he so tragically lost. And he's written recently, Joe Biden, reflecting on the influence of his late son Beau. This is what he wrote. "Beau would always grab my arm before I walked on stage and pull me back towards him until I was looking into his eyes. 'Dad, look at me. Dad, look at me. Remember, Dad. Home base, Dad. Home base, Dad. Home base.' What he was saying was, remember who you are. Remember what makes and matters to you. Stay true to your ideals. Be courageous." And then Beau would hug me, and he would shove me forward. Now, at this time, I cannot hug you and push you forward. But for my own dear cousin, Norman, or Nursery as I know him in Switzerland, and for you all out there as you go through the dressing rooms onto the field of play on the front line, I'm afraid I cannot give you a well-meaning and sincere, a strongly gentle hug as you move forward. But what I can give you are the words of Andrea Bocelli as he sings, "You'll never walk alone." And in so doing, can I remind us all that nothing is out of our depth if we embrace it, and that one day we will know and understand. When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high, and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of a storm is a golden sky and the sweet silver song of a lark. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, though your dreams be tossed and blown. Walk on with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone. You'll never walk alone. And as far as Columba 1400 and I and all your tutors are concerned, never above you, never below you, always beside you. You'll never walk alone.